In a previous section or session, we have seen about the structure of vitamin D and about its metabolism, etc. Now we shall look at what is the major function of vitamin D. The first one being intestinal absorption of calcium and phosphate. So vitamin D plays a major role in absorption of calcium and phosphate within the intestine. First of all, this vitamin D binds to the chromatin of the target tissue and expresses the genes for calcium binding proteins as well as calcium ATPase in the intestinal cells. This increases the calcium absorption by actively transporting calcium across the plasma membrane against the electrochemical gradient. So this is the one responsible for transporting calcium as well across the plasma membrane. Moving on to the next function, which is mineralization of bones. It is believed that the synthesis of calcium binding proteins like osteocalcin and alkaline phosphatase is promoted, which increases calcium and phosphate ions in the bones. These ions enhance the mineral deposition in the bones. Vitamin D is also believed to promote bone resorption and calcium mobilization to raise the levels of calcium and phosphorus in blood in association with the parathyroid hormone. So as we all know that the parathyroid gland is also responsible for maintaining the calcium levels inside the body. Moving on to the next function, which is renal absorption of calcium and phosphorus. It lowers the pH in certain parts of the gut, such as the colon, and produces increase in urinary pH. It counteracts the inhibitory effect of calcium ions on the hydrolysis of phytate in adequate amounts, and in case of high calcium intake, it suppresses the anti-calcifying and rachitogenic effect of phytate. In physiologically compatible intake, it is found to increase the citrate content of the bone, blood, tissues, and the urinary level. Now let's see what would happen if there is a deficiency of vitamin D. The first condition being rickets. Now let's understand how these rickets are caused because of the deficiency of vitamin D. First of all, vitamin D is required for the normal growth and mineralization of bones, as we all know. In its absence, instead of growth occurring normally, the osteoblast's proliferation does not take place in the orderly fashion and is not accompanied by vascularization and mineralization at the normal rate. This results in the irregularity in the zone of provisional calcification. The cartilage cells do not degenerate as they should, and ends of the long bones become bulky and soft. The bone mineral may be reabsorbed away from the shaft of the long bones, making it soft. Bending of long bones gives rise to deformities such as bow legs, knock knees. The ankles, knees, wrists, and elbows are swollen due to swelling of epiphyseal cartilages. The frontanelles do not close properly, giving hot cross bun appearance of the head. Ribs give beaded appearance and chest gives a pigeon breast appearance. Teeth erupt late and are deformed. So this is a typical picture showing how rickets look like, or how a person suffering from rickets will appear. And this is a person with normal physiology of the body. This is caused mainly due to the deficiency of vitamin D. These are the typical signs of a person with rickets. Moving on to the next condition, which is osteomalacia. The deficiency of vitamin D in adults is osteomalacia, which is rare. It can occur in pregnancy and lactation, where there is additional requirement of vitamin D and drainage of it in the milk. In women who observe parda and or in climates where sunshine is scanty, calcium and phosphorus absorption is decreased. Consequently, mineralization of osteoid to form bone is impaired. Such bones become soft. This particularly affects the pelvic bones. These are the normal bone cells, and these cells are those having osteomalacia, or this is a typical bone of a person with osteomalacia which has a bent structure. The next one is renal osteodystrophy. When the renal parenchyma is lost or diseased quite significantly, it is unable to form calcitriol and calcium absorption is impaired. Hypocalcemia leads to increase in the parathyroid hormone, which acts on the bones to increase the calcium levels. Consequently, there is excessive bone turnover and structural changes. This condition is known as renal osteodystrophy. Now, what would happen if there is an excessive amount of vitamin D? Normally, vitamin D is well tolerated if taken in large doses, but serious deleterious effects may be produced if taken in extremely large doses for prolonged periods. Effects are mainly due to induced hypercalcemia. The immediate effects include anorexia, thirst, lassitude, constipation, and polyuria, followed later by nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Delayed effects can be persistent hypercalcemia and hyperphosphatemia, which may produce urinary lithiasis, metastatic calcification, which may affect kidneys, bronchi, pulmonary alveoli, muscles, arteries, and gastric mucosa. Renal failure may develop and can lead to death. In growing children, there may be excessive mineralization of the zones of provisional calcification at the expense of diaphysis, which may undergo demineralization. So with this, we end the topic on vitamin D. Next, we shall see another kind of vitamin. We'll look at its structure and what are the various functions and what would happen if there is an increase in the vitamin and so on. Thank you very much.